Good morning and welcome to the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. We're happy to have you this morning. We're coming to you live through Zoom and also through Facebook Live. We're going to talk today, this is about agricultural sustainability. This is the 10th in our series of soil and water conservation virtual field trip. We're excited to have you with us, and this is going to be the first in a series of 5 on agricultural sustainability. Now, I'm really excited about this because it kind of pulls and looks at the big picture and pulls everything together. And we've got some great speakers lined up for you this morning. One of the benefits of participating in a live virtual field trip is that you can submit your questions in the Q&A box. Just type them in and we'll answer as many questions live as we can at the end. And if we don't get to all of them live, we'll give you instructions on who you can contact or how you can find that answer. If you are a certified crop advisor or an Arkansas teacher in need of CEUs or PDUs, this live webinar, we will post instructions for obtaining those in our closing credits. So if you'll stay with us till the end, you'll be able to get that information to be able to fulfill your credits. With that, we also will have a poll at the end of the thing that we'd like for you to fill out if you're willing to. But as we get started here, I'm going to share you an introduction on agricultural sustainability to kind of set the stage for our experts. I don't claim to be an expert in agricultural sustainability, but the two guys that are going to be speaking with me today, Dr. Marty Matlock and Dr. Rainey, definitely are. Dr. Marty Matlock, he's the executive director of the Office of Campus Resiliency at the University of Arkansas. He has traveled all over the world and helping companies and grower organizations and the agricultural industry come up and understand these concepts and build sustainability plans and goals. And then we have Dr. Rainey, who is a director of the Center of Agricultural and Rural Sustainability. He's also director of the Southern Risk Education Management Center. And he also has a program called Market Maker that's been very useful to some of our farmers in trying to get into the market of agricultural sustainability. So we keep talking about that, but what is the definition that we're moving closer and closer to? Well, I think you can define it in these terms: the goal of achieving a sustainable planet, one that will accommodate the basic needs of its present inhabitants while preserving the resources that will enable future generations to flourish. Now, the part I want you to remind you of is this is a virtual field trip for soil and water conservation, but did you notice that while preserving the resources? And obviously agriculture depends on 2 or 3 very important natural resources: soil, water, and air. And so, but how do we put this in motion? How do we put this concept of knowing where we're at and that sort of thing? Well, it's this phrase called continuous improvement. That's how we work through this big picture, this big long line of the supply chain, is that we all work toward continuous improvement toward sustainability. And so that's become a new term in this, that we're always wanting to improve. And this is certainly a global aspect because we want our farmers to be able to market their foods around the world, and consumers, retailers have found out that consumers around the world want to know where their food is coming from and want to know that it's been produced sustainably, that they'll be able to go to the supermarkets and to the stores and find things on the shelf to feed their families. You're going to see this theme throughout our thing, but I'm going to let Marty and Ron define this much better. This is the 3 dimensions of sustainability that we really look at. And one of them is in the environmental aspect. Marty will talk about it from an ecological services standpoint. The other is economics. Economics is always going to play a role in sustainability. There's a lot of different perspectives. The farmers have a perspective of being profitable enough to be able to continue to farm. Consumers have the idea of economics is that they want a good source of food, but that's not taking up too much of their disposable income. And then we have all kinds of social aspects. And really where we're trying to get is finding the balance of these 3 things into what we would call a sustainable domain. And again, how do we measure that? How do we know that we're moving that way? we're invoking this concept of continuous improvement. Well, sustainability invokes many questions from the grower to the retailer. And as we continue to work together on this, you will find that there's a lot of questions. How do we know we're sustainable? Well, that's what we're working toward, is understanding, defining it. How do we measure continuous improvement? How do we know if we're meeting the mark? Are we moving forward? Are we continually improving? The economics, I've already mentioned that the economics for the farmer may be much different than the economics for the retailer or the economics for the consumer. Why is there such interest from retailers? And one reason we know there's a lot of interest from retailers over the last 10 years is that they know that they can increase their market, increase the loyalty of their customers when they bring in the idea that they source sustainable products based on sustainable practices. It's not just a marketing ploy, that's part of it. But as Dr. Matlock will explain, we have a lot of challenges facing us in agriculture as far as trying to feed the world as the population grows. So it's not just a marketing employ, but marketing is certainly a part of it. And we have found that in some of these programs that are private driven, incentive based, that it may work out very well for our farmers, but we're still in the early stages of those programs. And then finally, how is the Division of Agriculture addressing sustainability? We're going to start with that question first. Through research, and this is our 3 missions. This is for anything we do, whether it's agricultural sustainability, weed control, food science. We take an integrated approach to research to ensure unbiased research-based information. That's number 1. We want to give information that is sound, scientifically sound, and helpful to everyone, and unbiased for sure. Education, it's amazing how these companies, supply companies, retailers, they are all starting to focus on sustainability, and they are creating jobs for sustainability coordinators. You look in the state of Arkansas, Walmart has put a big effort in to having sustainability coordinators around the world. Tyson's has a chief sustainable officer now. So there's a lot of companies investing into this idea of continuous improvement and sustainability. And we're preparing students to be able to fill those jobs and to work. Extension, we're working directly with farmers to document continuous improvement. Dr. Bill Robertson, our cotton specialist, is really working hard with cotton farmers to make them understand it's going to be important to them marketing their crop someday if they can document what they're doing and show how that's sustainable. And we've been doing these things in research, education, extension throughout our history, certainly in production efficiency and profitability. We've moved to looking at environmental stewardship, and we're certainly evaluating and improving the management of natural resources. And that's going to play a big role, because you're going to see that in this sustainability effort, improving the management of our natural resources is going to be a very key performance indicator. Well, what are some of the new programs that have been developed in the last 10 years or so to address agricultural sustainability? Well, first, under leadership of Dr. Mark Cochran, our Vice President for Agriculture and head of our division, he had a vision of developing a center that could work on these things, and it's known as CARS, or the Center for Agricultural and Rural Sustainability. Marty Matlock is a former director of that. Ron Rainey is a director now, and we have other co-directors, but they do a great job of bringing together concepts and tools and programs that can help people assess their sustainability. Out in the field, working with farmers to work on natural resources, we had the first baseline. Where are we at in terms of use of water on farms? What kind of runoff water quality we have? And we came up with the Arkansas Discovery Farm program that works with farmers on their farm to document this on their farm. But it's more than that, because we're able to get those farmers involved in educating other farmers about what we're finding on their farms, because these can be highly emotional issues. One thing that's emerged, and several of us have been involved in this, is we recognize that soil health will play a big role in some of the sustainability metrics and goals that companies and different groups are putting out there. And so we know that's a big issue. Irrigation efficiency. we're in a groundwater crisis, whether we realize it or not in Eastern Arkansas. Are we going to have enough water to continue to irrigate like we are? Well, we've got to start improving our efficiency. And we're doing that with the advent of some computer programs that help us design furrow irrigation, conversions of surface water, those type of things. But those are very important to the end user of our agricultural products, the consumer. They want to know that we're going to be able to continue to produce food at a reasonable price in the future. We're also doing a lot of using some of the new sustainability metrics, such as the field to market field print calculator. Bill Robertson's leading that effort, and he's run this on a lot of different fields in cotton. And it allows you to look at how you're doing for the different key performance indicators in sustainability and compare that to other farmers in your county, to your state, and nationally. So it's a very good tool to kind of give you an indicator. But these metrics are going to advance, and that's part of what we're doing in the division, is helping advance the science behind these metrics. I want to give you a quick example of how this is helping farmers. We have a lot of success stories, but this is one that Bill Robertson has so graciously loaned some of his information that he's collected for cotton. And I think it's eye-opening in a lot of ways. First of all, why would we be interested in this with our producers? Well, the U.S. cotton national goals for continuous improvement by 2025 is they want the land use efficiency, our productivity, to go up by 13%. That's not increasing land use, that's making our land use more efficient that we're currently growing cotton on. We want to reduce, or they want to reduce the soil loss by 50% through reducing soil erosion. They want to decrease our water needs by 18%, or our water use by 18%. They want to use less energy. They want to see less greenhouse gases coming from cotton production. And they want to see us increase and store soil carbon in our soils. And one thing we know, and one reason we're so interested in soil health and working with farmers, all these things mentioned as the U.S. cotton national goals for continuous improvement or agricultural sustainability are all impacted by soil health. And so it's not just a matter now of measuring how much fertilizer, but how active is our soil microbiology from a microbiological standpoint. Excuse me. BASF is a chemical company that supplies chemicals, pesticides, growth regulators, and other things for cotton production. But they have this thing called the E3 cotton, equitable, economical, environmental. And someday you're going to see these type of logos and labels on our products to show that it's met the sustainability measures that are being set in place by the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol. And that cotton then will be, in some parts of the world, will be more valued, will get a better price as a product that consumers want to use. And you look at these, it's very similar to some of the others, but soil and fertility management, including soil health, greenhouse gas reduction, worker health and safety, energy conservation, pesticide management and use, and water efficiency. And so, other companies, and another example I have is we're working on a discovery farm that's partially funded by the Anheuser-Busch Corporation, and they're wanting to help rice farmers become more sustainable and be able to document that. And so we're monitoring how much water is being used and what practices use less water and how productive that is. But if you look at Anheuser-Busch, they're not just asking farmers, and it's a voluntary program, by the way. They've done it within their own corporation from an industry standpoint. They've had goals set up of using less water at their brewing plants, these type of things. So sustainability is going across the entire supply chain. Why is this happening? Well, cotton and brand retailers are realizing that they can be more competitive in the marketplace if they can market sustainable cottons, and so that we can document that. And if you look at the Target, like for example, Target, the large retailer, they're committed to 100% sustainable cotton by 2022. That's not far away. But if you look at the other big retailers, Wrangler, Walmart, some of these others, Levi Strauss and Co. These companies that use cotton in their products, look at this. They all have 100% sustainable goals. And that's going to mean that you're meeting all the performance standards of sustainability that will be set and are being set And so there's a tremendous interest from the retailer standpoint. They're going to pay growers a premium price if they can document this. And so it's very important to our growers to understand that their customers, these customers, even though they may be a few steps removed down the supply chain, but they're still customers, need this for them to stay viable. Well, Steve Stevens was our cotton discovery farmer, and he was already doing things like designing and trying to be more efficient in his irrigation. He didn't know how much more efficient, but once we got out there and started measuring things as a discovery farm, we found out he increased his water use efficiency by 20%, from about 70% to over 90%. And we were astounded that you could get that type of efficiency with furrow irrigation. But if you really work at it, and you use these new tools and technology, you can do it. He allowed us to come on and monitor water resources on discovery farms and see how conservation practices affect water quality in our runoff, how to account for rainfall and irrigate better, these type of things. He implemented some practices that we were able to look at and see if there were differences: no-till, cover, tillage, no cover, which was more of a traditional, but looking at no-till and cover, we're starting to see some things. And really, when you look at that, and this is work that Bill Robertson's done, and it's very good information, things we hear from farmers about going with no-till and cover crop, or what a lot of people would consider more sustainable practices. Yes, the cost per acre averaged 1.73% more. No one wants to spend more money, but look what happened. The cost per pound of lint produced actually dropped by 15%. For no-till with cover crop. So yeah, it cost a little bit more to get it implemented, but when you start seeing the benefit year after year, we started seeing that the overall cost was going down. And so the footprint, according to the field print calculator, averaged 32% less for those items that the field market footprint consider. And so we felt that this was a success story. We've had others, like Ron Rainey has worked with Ralston Farms in Atkins, Arkansas, to help market rice directly to supermarkets. And you can look on their box. This created a unique market for the Ralstons, but they put a code on their box, and any consumer that buys that box of rice can call them or contact them, and they can tell you exactly what field, when and where that rice was produced. But we're going to reserve questions till the end. But remember, go ahead and put your questions in, if you would. So go ahead and type those now into the question and answer. We've got people going through those, and we'll answer them as many live as we can today. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Marty Matlock. We are very blessed in this state to have such a world-renowned sustainability expert as Dr. Matlock. Like I said, he's traveled around the world helping agricultural industries and companies develop their sustainability goals and plans, and while educating people on these concepts. And so with that, Marty, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you do your thing, Marty.
Hello, I'm Marty Matlock, Executive Director of the University of Arkansas Resiliency Center and Professor of Biological and Agricultural Engineering at the University of Arkansas. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the challenges of sustainable prosperity, especially from the perspective of agriculture and population. Everything is connected. Our economic well-being is connected to our social stability and social well-being. And our social stability and social well-being is deeply connected to ecological services, the ecological domain, the things we get from Earth that drive our prosperity. Everything is changing, and the rate of change is faster than anything our species has ever experienced. And we're all in this together. All 7.25 billion of our brothers and sisters today are in this together in ways we've never been before. We are interconnected. We're interconnected by communications. We're interconnected by relationships. We're interconnected by products, goods, and services. We share many things on this planet, not the least of which the atmosphere and the climate upon which all of our prosperity depends. We're going to address three big questions. What are we trying to sustain? Who gets to decide? And what are more sustainable decisions? So what are we trying to sustain? Well, really, it's us. human prosperity. The Sustainable Development Goals lay out 16 measurements of things we should be concerned about, things we should be trying to make better on the planet, and a 17th goal of working together to achieve the other 16 goals. These are not controversial. These are not things we disagree about. Ending poverty, ending hunger, good health and well-being, clean water and sanitation, life on the land, life below the land. All of these things are things we all care about. The problem is their intention. We can't achieve improvements across all of them all at the same time. We have to prioritize these things. If we're going to end hunger, that may mean for a period of time we have to use more water and more energy to produce more food on the land, especially if we don't want to expand tillage areas and if we want to concentrate and increase yields from our current agricultural lands. So that means we've got trade-offs to make. Who gets to decide about those trade-offs? That's a challenge we have to address. Who gets to decide? Because we have one common challenge that is not going away. Our climate is changing. Our atmospheric greenhouse gas concentrations are increasing. The scientific evidence is unambiguous. Human loads of carbon to the atmosphere are significant. There are other sources, certainly, but humans have ratcheted it up dramatically over the last 200 years, especially the last 140 years. So let's own our problem and let's fix it. Because if we don't, our children and our grandchildren are going to have a heck of a time. Prosperity is the goal. Prosperity today, and if we're going to be good ancestors, prosperity for our children, our grandchildren, and their children. Now, Maya Angelou said there's a world of difference between truth and facts. Facts can obscure the truth. So I don't want to just slam you with facts. I want to share truth with you, things that we know to be true. In 1950, when my parents were dating, there were about 2.25 billion people on the planet. This condition of humanity in the early 1950s was pretty dire. More than half of humanity was chronically malnourished, didn't know where their breakfast was going to come from. The work of an army of agricultural scientists and advisors around the world increased food production dramatically, reducing starvation in critical regions of the planet, providing food security to nations that had never known food security, like India and Mexico. They became net exporters of grains over a 40-year period. My mentor and friend, Dr. Norman Borlaug, who developed hybrid varieties of wheat that were not sensitive to day length, so they could be grown at multiple latitudes, won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970 for saving, they estimated, over 1 billion lives from starvation from 1955 to 1970, over that 15-year period. Here's the challenge we have. In the next 40 years, we're going to hit 12 billion people. 12 billion people on the planet if we don't do something. Now, Norm said they didn't set about just to end hunger. They set about to free people from the tyranny of hunger so that they could make better decisions. And people do make better decisions when they are not hungry, when they are prosperous. They have fewer children. So what we do in the next 10 years for human prosperity will shape humanity for the next 100 years. And I can tell you, when technologies collide and cultures collide, technologies prevail, cultures change. It's going to be critical because of the 9.5 to 10 billion people coming to dinner in the next 30 years, the new people aren't going to come from around here. 2 billion folks are going to come from emerging economies. Their global population distribution is not going to be equal. So we're going to see dramatic increases in population in Asia outside of China and India, as well as in Africa. Norm said, when he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize, that we can't end the battle against hunger until the forces to reduce hunger unite with the forces to reduce population growth. He understood that these are intimately connected, that prosperity is the goal. Hunger is a barrier to prosperity. That when you reduce hunger, people have better choices, and they can make those choices in ways that improve their own prosperity, however they define that. He also understood that throughout human history, when people have more food in their bellies and more choices, they choose to have fewer children so they can expend resources on the children they have. They need fewer children to survive and to manage future risks. So in order to understand where we're going, we have to recognize where we came from. We have to understand that we've had the benefit of ancestors like Norm who have worked to make this world better so that we can make better choices. We are making better choices, but we need to leave the world better so that our children can make better choices. This is about continuous improvement. So our sustainable challenges are to double feed food, fiber, and fuel from the land in the next 4 decades if we want to preserve biodiversity and other land-based ecosystem services. We must freeze the footprint of agriculture. Energy costs are going to drive innovation while limiting expansion of productivity. Water scarcity is going to limit productivity globally. So these are our challenges. Field to Market, the Alliance for Sustainable Agriculture, focuses on defining, measuring, and advancing the sustainability of food, fiber, and fuel production. This is a multi-stakeholder initiative with partners from across the global food supply chain, including universities. The University of Arkansas was a founding member and faculty still serve on the board of this incredible organization. It includes World Wildlife Fund, Nature Conservancy, other conservation organizations, as well as retailers like McDonald's and Walmart, as well as farm organizations like the United Soybean Board, as well as National Corn Growers Association, Cotton Incorporated, and others. We define sustainable agriculture as meeting the needs of the present while improving the ability of future generations to meet their own needs by increasing productivity to meet future food and fiber demands, improving the environment, improving human health, improving social and economic well-being of agricultural communities. We understand that sustainability is a continuous improvement process. It is not a one-stop problem to solve. It means always looking at how we can get better, defining our challenges, defining how we're going to measure them, measuring them, benchmarking and setting goals, developing strategies to meet the goals, implementing those goals, measuring and assessing and reporting. And if it doesn't work, go back and figure out what you did wrong and change it. So we define sustainability for the enterprise. We've done that with agriculture. Key performance indicators are the next step. The Field to Market Alliance for Sustainable Agriculture identified key performance indicators as being outcomes-based. It's not practice-based. Practices drive outcomes, but we measure outcomes. So the farmers get to choose the practices. Science-driven. It's not what people believe. It's what actually works. Technology neutral. We don't decide which technologies farmers should apply. Farmers decide, and the governing mechanisms behind those technologies, like genetically modified crops. And then transparent. Everybody should see. The environmental key performance indicators that we start with are greenhouse gas emissions, soil loss, energy use, water use, land use. And then we're also working on water quality, nutrient use efficiency, habitat, and biodiversity. These are common across every sector of U.S. agriculture now. We've standardized these and adopted them across row crops, specialty crops, and animal agriculture. The University of Arkansas has been a leader in this initiative, and we're proud to be a part of this community of work. So what we're trying to do is move the curve. So let's take this distribution of soil erosion, for example. So let's say in 2010 we had soil erosion where the average is, say, 0.131 tons per bushel of a national average. Well, we know that our highest eroding fields don't represent that national average. If we want to make the national average better, we can pay the best farmers to get even better, but they're already doing pretty well. Why don't we work with the farmers who are having the most difficulty and move the curve? This concept of moving the curve is critical. And of course, the USDA NRCS has been doing this for 120 years. So then we benchmark these indicators, set goals, and develop strategies to meet the goals. Goals are not just something we throw around lightly. When we set a goal, we recognize that they're aspirational goals. Those are headings on the horizon. We're going to go that way. Strategic goals, those have time and dates and amounts associated with them. So we're going to achieve 10% reduction of soil erosion in 10 years. That's an example of a strategic goal. Now you see the dashed line because those two vision goals, aspirational and strategic goals, really are multi-stakeholder initiatives. Below that, management goals, tactical and operational goals, though, belong to the operator. Those belong to the farmer or to the processor or distributor. Those belong to the supply chain. They do not belong to the multiple stakeholders because we do not want to meddle with innovation. We want to allow people to do whatever they see is working in their system to achieve our common strategic goals. We benchmark these with Field to Market's annual or every 5-year report based upon NRCS and National Ag Statistics Survey data from USDA. And so looking at this radar diagram, we have 5 environmental goals: greenhouse gas emissions, land use, soil conservation, irrigation, water use, and energy use. We indexed all of these to 2000 as a baseline year. And we said, how are we doing? And we looked at 5-year averages from 81 to 85 all the way to 2011 to 15. We're working on our next report this year. So the 2020 report from 15 to 20 will come out next year. And what you can see is how across irrigation water use, for example, we got better from 81, and then we got our best was 2001 to 2005. Then we had a major drought, and so we had to make a choice. We used more irrigation water to deal with the drought of 2011 and 12. But our soil erosion has been going down consistently. It's slowing down, but it's been going down consistently for the last 40 years. So as our yield increased, measured as land use efficiency, greenhouse gas emissions are going down because energy use is going down. These are the way we benchmark and set goals. And then we implement the strategy. We measure, assess, and report the results. And if it doesn't work, we come back. So we're looking at water use efficiency. We're looking at soil erosion as things we can change and make better. So we know where we came from. We came from a place where people were hungry, where food was insecure, and where people were struggling to survive. And where we're moving now is to a place of security, food security for all of humanity, while we can also reduce the impacts that we're having on the land while we produce that food. Wendell Berry, in his poem, The Real Work, says, "It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. When we no longer know which way to go, we have begun our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings." We are working on very difficult problems. We are starting the real work of feeding 10 billion people without eating our planet. Our farmers are heroes. Our farmers are leading this work. In order to address the challenges we face in the future, in order to be good ancestors, we have to work together across all sectors of society. We have to understand that food systems are core to human prosperity. Food is not the enemy. Agricultural producers are not the enemy. The food supply chain is not the enemy. Our challenge is that we have outgrown our planet without planning. So it is time for us to rein in our appetites, manage our expectations, make choices that make the land more prosperous and the people on the land more prosperous so that society can become more prosperous. Thank you for your time. I'm Dr. Marty Matlock.
Thank you, Dr. Matlock. Excuse me. Excellent presentation. Like I said, he's a world-renowned expert on this topic. We're going to move on to Dr. Rainey, but before we do that, remember, submit questions to our question and answers, and we'll get answers to you. And the other thing I want to say is I may have failed to mention it. I hope I didn't, but our sponsor for these productions is the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service in Arkansas. And you notice Marty mentioned NRCS. NRCS is going to play a huge role because they have documented standards for conservation practices in all of the sustainability effort. And we certainly appreciate their partnership. We are just very fortunate to have a leader like Mike Sullivan at NRCS who's so willing to invest and work with us. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ron Rainey, and he's going to overview what CARS is doing, or the Center for Advanced Rural agricultural and rural sustainability. Dr. Rainey is an economic expert. He has a lot of great extension programs that help farmers. And with that, Ron, you take it away.
Good morning. I'm Ron Rainey, a professor with the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture. Excited to come here this afternoon to share with you about research activities of the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture in the area of sustainability. As we look at, as you've just recently heard, sustainability has multiple disciplines or areas of focus. Historically speaking, the three core areas are environmental, social, and economic. I just like to share this infographic because it talks about across those three core areas, the many dimensions or the multiple facets by which sustainability is analyzed and approached. The thing that I want you to see as you look at this, these multiple dimensions is the different disciplines that are involved when you're engaged in sustainability efforts. As I discussed the Division of Agriculture's activities in this area, I hope that you will see the multifaceted approach that the division's faculty and collaborators are engaged in to enhance sustainability efforts, not just here in Arkansas, but around the country. I'm going to spend a lot of my time today talking about the Center for Agriculture and Rural Sustainability. CARS, as we call it, is the primary vehicle that leads sustainability efforts across the division. It has broad responsibility in areas of research, teaching, and extension. With respect to the different aspects of agriculture and rural sustainability, overarching goals for CARS is to develop credible resources, to assess impacts and progress, to provide linkages to public and private resources that spur collaborative conversations, and then lastly, to create criteria to measure processes and systems in terms of efficiency, and also looking at those systems to establish benchmarks to examine progress. So as we look across CARS, that's our website. Invite you to visit that website. You'll see the resource, the background on it, along with all of its collaboration. So the Center for Agriculture and Rural Sustainability was established in 2007. It has a broad overarching a vision to become nationally and internationally recognized authority. The mission of CARS is to enhance sustainability efforts, not just here in Arkansas, but across the nation. As we look at our mission, the mission is to increase prosperity for rural Arkansas through sustainable practices. The center provides leadership in Arkansas and across the world in balancing the demands of community, agriculture, and ecosystems in order to meet the needs of current generations while enhancing the opportunities for future generations to meet their needs. So CARS serves as the primary outlet of sustainability research and outreach occurring across the University of Arkansas's Division of Agriculture. In terms of CARS, the structure of it is that it has three program directors. Again, thinking back to that infographic of the multiple disciplines, the multiple approaches that sustainability occurs across. So the three program directors are June Zhu, an ag engineering, focused on waste management, Jenny Pop, an agricultural economist with a focus in economics and input-output analysis, and then myself, Ron Rainey, an agricultural economist with a outreach or an extension focus with a focus on risk management and outreach. So we're the program leaders that provide some vision, some leadership to the effort with division leadership. But primarily our efforts are engaged through a collection of what we call affiliated faculty. And again, thinking back to the multiple disciplines that are involved or engaged in sustainability efforts. And so as we look across the multiple disciplines, in parentheses, I've listed the number of affiliated faculty, but there are 34 faculty that are affiliates of CARS. And so what these faculty are engaged in, some of them are working on individual projects, but some of them are working collectively and collaboratively across disciplines to develop sustainability projects that meet some of the core areas that CARS has identified and focuses to make a difference. But I just want to highlight the number of disciplines that there are. There are 14 different academic departments and mission areas that are represented amongst these affiliated faculty. And these units are not just from across the Division of Agriculture, but across the campus of the University of Arkansas. So we have agricultural economics and agrobusiness, animal science, biological and agricultural engineering, biological sciences, agricultural education, communications, and technology, the Office of Sustainability. We also have community and economic development, crop, soil, and environmental sciences, entomology, food sciences, horticulture, home and environmental sciences, the National Ag Law Center, and then 2 faculty from Extension. And those Extension faculty are from Ag Engineering and Horticulture. But again, that reflects the multifaceted approach that CARS faculty are engaged with, and they're engaged in numerous projects that benefit not only the state of Arkansas, but nationally and some global implications. CARS projects are carried out by the center faculty are diverse. They're covering all major areas of production, including animal and livestock, rice, forestry, timber, soybeans, specialty crops, and local foods, to name a few. CARS work provides the unparalleled support to the agriculture industries in rural communities to build sustainable green agriculture in Arkansas. And they also provide leadership to some national efforts. If you go and visit the CARS website, you will see these 7 project areas highlighted. These are the core areas that CARS projects have been engaged or carried out across the state and the nation. And as you look at these areas, I'm going to go in some detail to talk about specific projects that CARS is leading to bring about some positive change or developments in sustainability. And we'll start with economic contributions of agriculture. This site is basically developed to maintain a comprehensive list of contribution and impact studies that are involving the food, fiber, and forestry industries in the United States. These industries play an important role in supporting both national and regional economies across the U.S. Over the past several decades, researchers have utilized various tools and methods to measure the importance of these industries. CAR's goal for this site is to maintain a comprehensive list of these studies and tools, as well as to provide resources to allow researchers to reference when conducting additional or new contribution and or impact studies. There's also a blog that allows you to interested users to engage in discussions and identify new resources. And again, as you look at this contains data and information, not just on Arkansas, but on every state across the US. Next area is life cycle analysis. Life cycle analysis is a framework estimating the environmental impacts associated with all the stages of a product's life. That's from production or extraction, through the processing and manufacturing process, through distribution and use. So as you look across all of that, life cycle assessment is the key to estimating the environmental impacts of both intensified and traditional production systems. Researchers at the University of Arkansas Systems, the Division of Agriculture, are conducting cutting-edge research to address these issues on multiple crops. They're engaged in studies around the world, examining both traditional and new practices. The researchers are also collecting data and working to establish benchmarks to evaluate progress and or success. Some of those crops, cocoa, swine, cotton, dairy, rice, and sweet corn. Some of those tools or benchmarks are the energy calculators like greenhouse equivalents or carbon footprints. Next area is risk management. CAR's researchers have been developing and identifying resources to help producers identify and manage risk across the 5 broad risk management categories of production, marketing, financial, legal, and human risk. These materials are developed and shared to help producers manage the risk associated with their agricultural enterprises, regardless of the scale of operation, so regardless of the size of the operation. So these efforts aid small direct marketing farmers, as well as large-scale commercial operators. The site includes a collection of risk management guides and curriculums. It also highlights and aligns with some of the Southern Risk Management Education Center's efforts, which is a part of the national program of Extension Risk Management Education. So SRMEC is a regional center that is housed at the University of Arkansas that currently allocates over 1.5 million annually in competitive grants. These grants are awarded to groups like land grants, colleges and universities, community-based organizations, non-government organizations that serve to educate our farmers and ranchers. So the funds from these awarded grants are used to provide educational programs to help our farmers and ranchers across the region mitigate agricultural risks that they face. The center serves a 13 state region across the Southeast US and the territories of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Next is specialty crop production and marketing. So in essence, what CARS does is it is a food industry program using research, education, and outreach with a focus on strengthening the farm to retailer connections and promoting local food systems. So the site contains a collection of resources and tools to assist the food industry participants all across the food value chain from farm to table to help its participants not only understand the value of that chain, but to make connections to make that a more sustainable system. The tools include resources like production budgets, also includes online free marketing resource called Market Maker. And it also includes a couple of national efforts that CARS has led. One is the National Strawberry Sustainability Initiative, and the other is the National Direct Ag Marketing Summit, which is currently continues to as an ongoing effort or a convening or a national conference focused on local and regional food systems development and enhancement. Sustainability metrics is the next area. So CARS was involved in establishing from the very beginning a national organization of Field to Market, the Alliance of Sustainable Agriculture. Currently, Dr. June Zhu, who's the co-director of CARS, is elected by the affiliate sector of Field to Market to serve on the board of directors. Since its inception in 2006, Field to Market has grown into a full-fledged organization with over 140 members across the nation. Interested citizens about Field to Market can find out more information by visiting that link, Field to Market, directly, but that link is available on the CARS website. As we look at some of the tools, some of the metrics, we have sustainability metrics are measured across 8 core metric areas. And so CARS seeks to highlight those areas in terms of national indicators reports, and also in terms of scaling farmer access, which is a tool that allows farmers to evaluate their environmental, social, and economic opportunities to understand or look at some of the different processes and metrics to enhance their profitability and sustainability. The next area is waste management. Activities focused on sustainable methods of efficient use in turning agricultural waste into valuable products. Again, our CARS program co-director, Professor June Zhu, has been working on sustainable methods of turning agricultural waste into valuable products. These projects include turning livestock and poultry waste into renewable energy resources and usable value-added products, as well as developing technologies or analyzing and evaluating those technologies with which farmers can produce their own organic fertilizer. A primary focus of the waste management effort has been on handling, treatment, and reuse of poultry litter. And then the last area is water management. CARS continues to build strong relationships with industry, academia, and government. CARS is actively engaged in projects that address water quality and water quantity management. By building strong partnerships, CARS seeks to provide the science needed to make water resource management decisions at the local, state, regional, and national level. CARS is a leader in creating and developing the discipline of ecological engineering. The discipline of ecosystem service, study, and design. Dr. Matlock, the executive director of the University of Arkansas Office of Sustainability, is the past president of the American Ecological Engineering Society. and leads a number of these efforts in that space. And so Doug concludes my remarks on sustainability efforts across the division. But the thing about agricultural sustainability is that it has become a vital component within our business that we must plan for, manage, and evaluate. Agricultural sustainability seeks more than environmental stewardship. It collectively seeks to create a value proposition to allow businesses to be more sustainable and profitable. Thank you.
Ron, that was an excellent presentation. Great words of wisdom there at the end. We're going to get into our questions, but before we do that, I need to take care of some housekeeping. We're going to put up on your screen here in a minute some QR codes so that you can get in and get your professional development credits. We also have some poll questions that we ask you. It won't take long to do these, and they're going to come up, but it helps us better understand how to improve our product. Remember, we talked about that continuous improvement. We're always trying to do that too. Again, I want to thank NRCS. They've been a wonderful partner. They have funded these soil and water virtual field trips, which I think have been very successful. And with that being said, let's go ahead and move into our questions, because we're not going to have time for many, but we are going to try to answer as many as possible. This first one is for Dr. Matlock. What impact have the corporate sustainability initiatives that have motivated companies to want to sell sustainably produced products had on the incentives or requirements for farmers?
The impacts are pretty direct in the sense that it sends a very clear message to our farmers. But remember that that most farmers don't sell directly to consumers. Farmers sell to commodity markets. And so really what's happened is that we've had this sort of community messaging approach where if Walmart or McDonald's want more sustainable products, they make that clear to their supply chain, and then the buyers, Bunge and others in the supply chain, make that signal clear. What's been frustrating to the farmers is that there's been no premium provided for producing more sustainable crops. And so our message to farmers is, don't do this for the consumers, do this for you. Do this for your own production systems. The story you told, Mike, about cotton and about producing cotton with low-till, no-till cover crops, you do that because it makes your system more resilient and more sustainable, and that's your motivation. Don't expect somebody else to pay you for it, because that's always tricky. Even if you get a premium today, there's no guarantee of a premium tomorrow. Don't chase that ghost. What you need to focus on is making your system the most profitable and the most resilient you can make it. And that's how you become a sustainable producer.
Thank you.
Dr. Daniels, you're muted.
I hit it, but I guess I didn't hit it well enough. Ron, this question is for you. What tools or practices are available for farmers that can help them become more sustainable?
Great question. And I kind of like to follow up on what Dr. Matlock said, is that first is to look at some of those field to market metrics and practices of how those benchmarks are being used as far as allowing producers to evaluate their on-farm decisions. But as the markets emerge, so keep in mind that these sustainability practices are emerging across the supply chain. As they emerge into branding like E3 Cotton, as they emerge in terms of third-party certifications, just kind of keep an eye out to see if there's an opportunity to further enhance your profitability by capturing some of those price premiums. And then lastly, I just touch base on exploring opportunities to use or add value to some of your byproducts or items that you might currently consider waste, to see if you can add a revenue stream to your business.
Super, Ron. This next one is for Marty. Marty, what do you mean by freezing the footprint of agriculture?
It simply means that we need to produce enough food, feed, fiber, and fuel now from the land to feed 10 billion people. We got 2 billion and 2.5 billion people coming to dinner more than we have now in the next 40 years. We need to do that without 1 hectare more of land, 1 acre more of land, 1 drop more of water, 1 gallon more diesel fuel. We have to become more efficient, more intensified, more effective. We have to reduce our losses at the farm level, in the processing, and certainly we have to reduce our waste at the consumer level. All of those systems are necessary if we're going to not eat our planet. We already use 43% of Earth's surface for agricultural production. We cannot keep just expanding more tillage land in order to meet our needs. That approach is not sustainable.
Thank you. Ron, this question is for you. How do producers and others find out more about tools and procedures and processes and programs that may help them become more sustainable or take advantage of some of the private-based incentive markets?
Yeah, I shared the CARS website on my presentation, which I believe are going to be shared. So I would maintain connection on CARS, because that information, we're continually updating the website with the evaluation of new technology and some of the practices, some of the new developments of findings and research. I also would recommend the fieldofmarket.org website. It's a great website that continually updates benchmarks and producer decision aids to guide on-farm sustainability efforts.
Thank you. Marty, this question's for you. We have someone that wants to know that is sustainable agriculture, does that mean organic agriculture?
No, organic is a specific certification process that is necessary in order to brand your products. Sustainable agriculture and organic agriculture can be compatible. Some organic producers can be sustainable. Some organic producers are not sustainable because of the processes they're using. What makes you sustainable is whether you're leaving the wood stack taller. Are you putting more carbon in the soil? Are you making your system healthier? Organic agriculture aspires to do that, and in some cases it does. But conventional agriculture using modern technology can also do that. So sustainability is about making things better based upon the metrics we've identified collectively as a society that we care about, and improving those. That's what sustainability is.
Excellent, excellent. Ron, this question for you is, what are some of the issues and success stories that we've been able to generate through sustainable agricultural concepts?
Great. You had mentioned one about the value-added rice mill in the River Valley, but Market Maker continues to connect farmers. Market Maker is a free online resource. It connects farmers across the food value chain that are interested in doing direct-to-institution or direct-to-consumer sales. There's some success stories of value-added processing with the university that assisted other farmers, not just in the River Valley, but across the Delta, with making decisions in terms of processing infrastructure, packaging, and also their marketing decisions, capturing that local and some of the branding opportunities. And then SRMEC has funded a number of projects, and I'd encourage our participants to go out to the center's website and go out to our national portal where we list resources developed from every funded project. You can do a search across water use or across conservation to see some of the resources that have been developed for farmer decisions.
Ron, thank you. I wish we could keep going, but we've got to bring this to a close. I want to thank Ron and Marty for excellent presentations. I know personally I learned a lot from what they were saying today. It inspires me to do better. But I also want to thank NRCS again for providing the funding and for being such a great partner. But the other thing that you don't understand in putting on these live events like this is there's a lot of people behind the scenes that do a lot of work to make this happen. And I can't name them all by name now, but I really want to thank them. And finally, we invite you. We've got 4 more in this series. This is just introduction, but we've got 4 more coming where we'll focus more attention on a specific commodity, including poultry, rice, cotton, and soybeans. You'll want to be tune in for that. Be looking for our information and advertisement. With that, we're signing off. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for the Soil and Water Conservation Virtual Field Trip. This broadcast is funded by NRCS and produced by the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture Cooperative Extension Service. To find out more about soil and water conservation, visit uaex.edu.